Rating Premier League clubs' summer transfer market. As I'm filming this video, we are exactly 1 month away from the start of the next Premier League season. There are some huge signings to discuss, and this is shaping up to be one of the most exciting Premier League seasons in years. In this video, we're going to be discussing some of the biggest moves, and we'll also rate each club based on their summer transfer window success. Starting out the video, we're going to be talking about Arsenal, who brought in two great players in Kai Havertz and Declan Rice. I think both of these signings were amazing for Arsenal. Kai Havertz is going to add a great other angle to their offense. He can kind of play anywhere, and that's what we saw during his time at Chelsea. As a Chelsea fan, I wish that we could have gotten a little bit more out of him, but after all, he did win the Champions League. Declan Rice, on the other end, he's been one of the most sought-after defensive midfielders in the league for several years now. Honestly, him teaming up with the likes of Thomas Partey as well as Martin Odegaard in the midfield could be huge. And that brings us to some of the players that have left Arsenal. That includes other central midfielder Granit Xhaka, as well as Pablo Mari. For a large part of the summer, the future of Thomas Partey was also seeming undecided, but recently he was seen in training, so it seems increasingly likely he will be staying at the club. And with Declan Rice and Thomas Partey potentially teaming up to be a defensive midfield duo, it's hard to see Arsenal not being title contenders this year. I think Arsenal have done absolutely amazing business, and for me, I'd have to rate them an A+ in this transfer window. Next up, we got a team that really exceeded expectations last season, and that's Brighton. They brought in defensive midfielder Mahmoud Dahoud from Dortmund, as well as forward João Pedro from Watford. João Pedro contributed 11 goals last season, and I think he's going to combine really well up top with players like Mitoma to create an overall dynamic offense for Brighton. They also got James Milner on a free from Liverpool, who's going to contribute so much experience with all his years in the Premier League. And then the most noticeable outgoing transfer from Brighton was the departure of Alexis Mac Allister to Liverpool. Obviously, Mac Allister is a great player, and that is going to be a loss, but I think Brighton has made enough moves on their end for this to be a pretty good transfer window. I'd rate them overall a B for this summer. And next up, we have Chelsea. Now, Chelsea's biggest challenge this summer was just how many players they had to get rid of, because this squad was insanely bloated. And they've been able to do just that. They've got rid of an enormous amount of players, including Mason Mount to Manchester United, N'Golo Kante, Hakim Ziyech, Koulibaly, Mendy, all to Saudi, as well as Kai Havertz to Arsenal, and many more departures. Additional to the massive clearing out of the squad that Chelsea had, they also brought in a few key new players. And the most important player I think they brought in is forward Christopher Nkunku from RB Leipzig for £52 million. Nkunku is constantly listed as a top scorer in the Bundesliga year after year, and if you watch his highlights, you can tell that he's a different player. Chelsea are absolutely desperate for a top scorer right now, so I think his addition should be great for the club. In addition to that, Chelsea have also picked up some more offensive firepower in striker Nicholas Jackson from Villarreal. But some of the biggest moves for Chelsea could also be from players they already have. Levi Colwill, who's previously been on loan, just finished an amazing U21 Euro performance, and he may be coming back to stay for the season. And midfielder Cesar Cassetti is also looking to make his debut for the first team, and he's been a great young prospect in the midfield. Overall, I think Chelsea did great business over the summer, and I would rate their window as a B+. Next up, we have Liverpool. Now, in my opinion, Liverpool's biggest issue going into the transfer market was their midfield. They had one of the oldest midfields in the league, and they really needed to inject some youth and energy into that group. But I think they've done just that with the additions of Alexis Mac Allister from Brighton, as well as Dominik Szoboszlai from RB Leipzig. Mac Allister is probably going to be more on the defensive mid side, while Szoboszlai is going to be more an attacking midfielder. But I think both of them are going to be great for supporting the offensive firepower that Liverpool already has. And then as far as outgoing transfers, Liverpool just got rid of a lot of players that weren't quite cracking into the first team and just cleared out some dead wood. This included a farewell to Roberto Firmino, Oxlade-Chamberlain, James Milner, and several others. But overall, I would rate Liverpool's transfer market as an A-. And next up, we have Manchester City, and the reigning champions have had a pretty quiet transfer window this far. Other than bringing in Mateo Kovacic from Chelsea, there haven't been any noticeable signings thus far. That being said, there have been some concerning departures. Ilkay Gundogan has left the club, he's gone to Barcelona, and there are more and more rumors each day that Bernardo Silva may be on his way to Saudi Arabia. And if I was a City player, I'd be really nervous about this, because definitely losing Gundogan could be an issue, and losing Bernardo Silva would mean that two of my most dynamic offensive players could be gone. Players like Gundogan and Silva are the reason City had so much depth last season, and I think if they lose them, it could put them in trouble just in case they have any injuries this year. So as it stands, until City bring in some more reinforcements, I would rate their current transfer window as a C. Next up, we have Manchester United, who are coming off of a pretty solid season last year where they got 3rd place, and they're really just looking to make some signings that can push them to be a title contender. Their biggest signing thus far has been Mason Mount from Chelsea. They got him for 60 million, and he's going to fit very well into their midfield. I see him partnering with Bruno Fernandes as they sit directly in front of Casemiro. I think it's going to be a great midfield 3 for next season, and I really think that he can inject a lot of energy into that squad. Additionally, Manchester United is finalizing negotiations for goalkeeper Andre Onana from Inter Milan. He's an amazing goalkeeper, and if United are serious about pushing for the title, that's exactly what they need. Moving on to outgoing transfers for United, they've released a lot of players that they've had on their roster for a while, including Phil Jones, who is finally leaving the club, and they've also gotten rid of, at this point, legendary keeper David De Gea. I think De Gea's departure is a little bit bittersweet for fans because he's had some amazing seasons and then some that weren't as great recently, but overall, I think he will be missed, but United could have the potential to bring in a better keeper in Onana. And overall, I'd rate Manchester United's summer transfer window as a B+. Next up, we got Newcastle, who have also been relatively quiet in the transfer window this summer. The most notable player they've brought in is Sandro Tonali, who came in at a price tag of 55 million pounds. I think the former Milan defensive midfielder is going to be great for Newcastle, but defense wasn't necessarily something they needed the most reinforcements on. Newcastle had some of the most clean sheets of any club last year, and they already have other defensive midfield pieces. I've heard rumors that Newcastle is still linked with Harvey Barnes and several other attackers, but I definitely think they're going to need to bring in some more offensive firepower. As far as outgoing players, Newcastle has let go of Chris Wood, and they are considering bids for Saint-Maximin, who could help bring in them a lot of money for other potential players. Sandro Tonali was a great addition to this squad, but I still think Newcastle has more work to do, and that's why I'd rate them a B- at this point in the summer. And finally, the last club on our list we're going to be discussing is Tottenham. Now, the biggest moves for Tottenham this far in the summer were signing Dejan Kulusevski on a permanent deal, as well as getting James Maddison from Leicester. Now, I think Kulusevski is an absolute baller. He's actually one of my favorite wingers in the Premier League, and getting him as a permanent deal was a great signing for Tottenham. James Maddison is also a really solid attacking midfielder. He's been really creative at Leicester, although he is a slight injury concern throughout his past seasons. As far as outgoing players, Harry Winks and Lucas Moura are both gone, but that's nothing in comparison to who may be leaving next. And that's because, according to latest news, Harry Kane has agreed personal terms with Bayern Munich. Now, obviously, Tottenham are very reluctant to lose Harry Kane. They've already denied 2 bids from Bayern Munich. The first was 60 million pounds and the second was 70 million pounds. But as Bayern Munich prepares their 3rd bid to send over to the North London club, I think it's going to be very hard for them to turn down, as Kane is on the last year of his contract and they don't want him to leave on a free next year. And I think that losing Harry Kane would be absolutely devastating for Tottenham. Offensively, they don't have the firepower without him, and 30 goals a season is not something that's easy to replace. So until Tottenham gets more reinforcements, I'm rating their current transfer window as a C-. So that does it for today's video. Let me know which player surprised you the most, and also which transfer you're most excited to see at their new club. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.